Here we are today with Rebecca May Hope. Hello.
Hi.
One of Gabriel's Horn's newest published authors. And she's going to tell us today a little bit about her new book, Silken Strands, a historic novel of the Oneida community. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks.
Silken Strands is a novel of the historic Oneida community. I've heard of Oneida silverware, but I've never heard of the Oneida community. Tell us about it.
Well, it was a pretty interesting commune. It started as a Christian commune, but it had some pretty quirky practices.
Quirky, that is one word for it. Isn't that putting it mildly?
Well, some people might think it's creepy or bizarre.
One might say so.
But they actually practiced several social practices that have become modern day for the 21st century, but they practiced designer babies, birth control, communal child raising, women in the workforce. What did I say? Did I say birth control?
You said that, and
okay, and
then
complex marriage, which was the biggie. So complex marriage meant that every man in the community was married to every woman in the community.
So it was meant to be a utopia, but utopias have a way of
descending into dystopia.
dystopias, and that was the case with Oneida, which is sort of, I think your novel is maybe at the beginning of what was really the end for them all, though it still took quite a while after that.
It was at the peak of the commune's success. It was the longest running and most successful of the 19th century American utopian experiments. But this is 1877,
and in America.
In America, and things were. There was a lot of dissatisfaction among the younger set of the commune. And what I found so interesting about it was that although they had the chance to have multiple sexual partners and it was totally considered okay by their prophet, what the younger generation wanted and longed for was monogamy and traditional marriage. And
isn't that funny how we rebel? We rebel, even if it's against everything that people now think they want. So tell us a little bit about John Humphrey Noyes, their founder.
So he was probably the most successful and influential cult leader, we could say, of an entire generation. And he founded the commune with people who were converts from the Second Great Awakening, which is pretty surprising considering what ended up happening there. But everyone had to comply with his rules if they were going to be part of the commune. So that's why the tagline of my novel is one man's utopia is a young woman's worst nightmare.
Yeah, and so everyone's married to everyone. That's definitely quirky, but what else?
So they give me a hint.
It gets a little creepy when you think how young they were being initiated.
Oh, right. So John Humphrey Noyes himself, for years and years, would initiate all the new young women into complex marriage, and usually right after puberty. And what I found very disturbing as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse myself was that nobody really has exposed or talked about that. They will tend to glorify the free love aspects of the community, but what I was going for was what would happen if a girl who was 17 had somehow been passed over for complex marriage. And now she's old enough to know.
And to think about, what's really going to happen. Tell us about this young woman, the center of your novel.
So she has been raised in the community and knows nothing else, but she longs to be a writer, and the community is one of the few places, probably the only place in the country at that time where a woman could work as a full-time writer. So she has the opportunity to do that, but only if she complies with their rules, meaning she becomes a communal wife. So she has to decide what she really wants. Is belonging and fitting in worth giving up something that's very precious to her, which is control over her body and her affections?
Right. So you put a lot of historical characters into the book, and that's along with, not to put a shameless plug in here, but when I was writing 221 BC with Kendall Price, that's one of the things I was amazed at, how every character in his book, with very, very few exceptions, was actually historical. And that's true for your book, too. So
Right.
tell us a little bit about a couple of those characters and why you wanted to write a novel about this rather disturbing
Yes.
time and place.
Exactly. Well, what I found originally was that a lot of the things that were in print were actually treating it like it was a utopia. But these were works that were put out after the silverware company was going, and
Yeah.
they wanted to put a good face on the commune. So people who had a vested interest were writing these memoirs. But then I found the published versions of Tirzah Miller's diary and Victor Hawley's, and both of those are just so dramatic and so poignant, and they gave a real life clue into what it was like to live there. And both of their timelines intersected in 1877, and so I made them characters in the novel, especially Tirzah. She's Millie's mentor, and she was the editress, they called her, of the community newspaper. And so they are characters, as well as John Humphrey Noyes, who was the prophet and founder, and then his son, who was the new leader of the commune, Theodore Noyes.
Silken Strands is about faith and not giving into pressure to do something you really don't want to do, so it's inspirational, no sordid details.
Exactly. It's a very safe read, although I do recommend it only for readers over 16 because it's got the mature thematic content.
Right, right. Who do you think would enjoy it the most?
Definitely readers of historical fiction. There's so much history in the book that people will find fascinating. It has enough romance in there where people who like historical romance will enjoy it too. Readers of new adult novels, because it's that 18 to 25-year-old where people are making decisions about their future, their career, who they want to be in life, and that's where Millie is.
How can readers find out more?
It's available on Amazon.com, of course, and you can go to my author site, RebeccaMayHope.com, to find out more about this book and other things that I'm writing.
And speaking of which, what is next for you?
So, hot off the press, this is our proof copy, but it'll be available soon, is Shattered Faith. This is a contemporary novella set in Minnesota about a woman who, she's a crime fiction writer, and she thinks her husband's having an affair, and she has to put her own fictional sleuthing skills to work in her own life to deal with her own situation.
Aha, very nice. And that will be available soon. Thank you,
Yes.
Rebecca.
Thanks.